Oh, the other day I was listening to a podcast because, I believe self-improvement and knowledge is literally the best investment you can make from your time. And at one point, the guest mentioned something that caught my attention. Basically, the average business lasts about 10 years. Now, obviously, businesses and video games aren't the same thing. I mean, unless we're talking about certain live service game that treat players like ATM machines. But that little statistic stuck with me, and it made me wonder, will gacha games ever die? We joke about it all the time, right? Wuthering Waves EOS soon! Or clowning on Tower of Fantasy because, well, it is actually shutting down. But what about the big ones? What about Genshin Impact? What about the entire genre? What will you play afterwards? And what about me, the content creator for these games? So naturally, my Asian curiosity ate the cat, or whatever the actual saying is.
Sup, homie? This is Tony.
I went down a research rabbit hole, and what I found is actually kind of fascinating. Gacha games might not be as bulletproof as they seem. And if you're curious too, then stick around. If this helps you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Let's get into it. Alright, let's start off with something that is really interesting. Businesses and gacha games actually have a lot in common. The average business lifespan is 10 years, right? Gacha games, those mobile cash cows, actually have lifespans comparable to small businesses. What does that mean? So when you look at the statistics of mobile games, the results are brutal. 83% of them fail within 3 years. That is worse than a restaurant industry. And if we zoom in on gacha games specifically, we see the same trend. Some of them thrive for a decade or more, like Puzzles and Dragons, Fate Grand Order, Summoner's War, which is my personal favorite, of course. They are still printing money years later. Meanwhile, others, they crash and burn in 2 or 5 years. Case in point, Tower of Fantasy, which launched in December 2021 and is already heading to the graveyard in April 2025. But here's the key takeaway. Individual gacha games might die, but the genre itself isn't going anywhere. It's a self-sustaining ecosystem. For every game that shuts down, there is a brand new one ready to take its place. Whether it's Zenless Zero, Infinity Nikki, or the upcoming gacha game Ananta, or some unannounced title that is already in development. Basically, gacha games are like cockroaches. They might evolve, change forms, or relocate, but they are never truly going extinct. If there's one thing you need to understand about gacha games, it's this. They are money printing machines. Let's put it in perspective. Genshin Impact, they made $1.2 billion in its first year. That is not total revenue, that is just mobile earnings. Meanwhile, your average AAA game takes 5+ years to develop, costs hundreds of millions to make, and still might flop unless it's a Grand Theft Auto level phenomenon. Genshin isn't even the biggest gacha money maker. Monster Strike, $7.2 billion. Fate Grand Order, multi-billion-dollar success. That game has been selling PNGs of anime characters for almost a decade, and its biggest whales are still out here dropping thousands of dollars on 0.8% rate-up banners. And why? Because the live service model is an infinite revenue loop. There is no end, no one-and-done purchase like a normal game. The developers can just keep rolling out new characters, weapons, skins, whatever it takes to keep you locked in and spending. It's brilliant, and it's terrifying at the same time, and it's exactly why gacha games aren't dying anytime soon.
Am I dead? Is this real?
But that is just one part of the story. Because let's be real, gacha games are just glorified slot machines, and they know exactly what they're doing. Every single 10 pull triggers a dopamine hit. You know that rush when the animation plays, and for the split second, you think, this could be it. This could be my 5-star. That is variable reward psychology. The same tactic casino uses to keep people glued to the slot machines. And when you lose, your brain still registers it as almost winning. That is why pulling a 4-star feels like it means something, even though it's literally just losing with extra steps. And the worst part is that it's all designed to keep you from stopping. Time-limited banners create FOMO. If I don't pull now, I might never get this character again. Pity system make quitting feel like a waste. Pity systems aren't actually pity. If you think about it, because you're like, maybe I already spent 60 pulls, might as well go in all the way. It's only 30 pulls, right? Daily login rewards, streak bonuses, soft pity mechanics, they all push you to engage constantly. Because the second you step away, you feel like you're losing progress. All of them combined, what do? They encourage spending. They trend you to spend just one more time, because that next pull, that could be the one. Because if you miss a day, you feel like you're left behind. The infinite FOMO farming, these companies are so good at it. And how do you compensate? Spend money. There you go. And there is another game about the gacha game genre. Failure isn't the end, it's just a pivot point. If a game flops, most industries would call it quits, right? But not gacha. These companies don't just give up. They repackage, rebrand, and relaunch until something sticks. The best example that I could think of right now is Snowbreak Containment Zone. It came out with all of the hype in the world. Cool cyberpunk aesthetics, third-person shooter mechanics, but it flopped really hard. Instead of abandoning it, the devs doubled down on fan service, releasing new skins, started pandering to the right audience, and voila, tripled their revenue. The game is still alive purely because they figured out what actually sells. And it's not just existing games evolving, the genre itself keeps churning out new titles. Every single year, new gacha games drop. Tribe 9, Arknight's Enfield, Neverness to Everness, the list keeps growing. And these aren't niche projects either. Huge studios are pumping millions into these games because they know the demand is still there. This isn't a dying industry, it's an adapting one. And as long as people keep swiping their credit cards, it is never going away. But do you want to know why gacha games never truly die? The answer is content creators. These games live and breathe off hype. And platforms like YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, whatever, keep the conversation going even when the game itself isn't doing much. They are the constant fuel keeping these games alive. Even when the interest starts to fade, and the crazy part, every type of content creator plays a role. Whether you love them or hate them, they shape the way you experience these games. First, we got the teachers, the guides, the tutorials. If you ever watched a poll guide, team building rotation, or a min-max tutorial, congratulations! You have participated in the knowledge economy of gacha games. These creators are the one who make sure you don't burn all your resources on a character that looks cool but functions like a wet paper towel. They crunch the numbers, test builds, and give players a reason to stay engaged. Because let's be honest, a lot of gacha games don't actually teach you how to play. They just throw characters at you that say good luck. Content creators bridge that gap and make sure people don't get frustrated and quit. And beyond that, they create a sense of community. Watching a guide makes you feel like you're part of a larger group, a fan base, a faction, a movement. And then we got the messengers, the drama, the critiques. This is where things get a little bit controversial. Some people roll their eyes at drama content creators, calling them negative or saying that they're stirring up problems that don't exist. But here's the reality. They make you care. Drama, controversies, criticism. These are the things that make people emotionally invested. Think about it. If a game makes a horrible decision, are you really going to read a 10-page Reddit post explaining it? Probably not. But you will watch a 10-minute breakdown on YouTube explaining exactly why it sucks. These creators are the one who hold developers accountable, spark discussions, and make sure the community actually has a voice. Sometimes they get villainized, but without them, people wouldn't be nearly as passionate about these games. And then we got the people who make the game look fun, exciting, and worth playing. The entertainers, right? Whale accounts flexing 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗵𝗵 characters, insane speedruns, ridiculous challenge runs that prove a 4-star can solo the hardest content. All of it keeps the game in the public eye. These players push the mechanics to their limits and give casual players something to aspire to. Even if most people will never touch that level of play, they still love watching it because it makes the game look alive. And even if they're bad at the game, they're low-key some of the most important people in the ecosystem. Let's be real, most players aren't hardcore meta players. They're just here to have a good time. So when a content creator is failing spectacularly but making it hilarious, it makes the game more inviting. Their struggles feel real, their reactions feel genuine, and most importantly, they make the people want to play. It's not because they're amazing, but because they're having fun. Even if they get clowned on for their skill level, they bring in a completely different audience. People who would never watch a guide but love seeing someone else experience the highs and many lows of the game. They humanize the experience and make it feel less like a competition and more of a shared journey. So whether it's the god tier speedrunners, the whales flexing their wallets, or the funny casuals just messing around, they're all contributing to keeping the game alive. Because at the end of the day, if people are still watching, they are still playing. And here's the funniest part. Even quote-unquote dead gacha games don't stay dead. A single YouTuber making a video about a gacha game that has low interest or what can resurrect that hype in a game that has been ignored for years. Suddenly people are reinstalling it, discussing what went wrong, or even hoping for a global relaunch. Let's say Tectone going back to Arknights. I mean, who cares about Arknights anymore, right? That game could have been dead for all I know. Or it doesn't even have to be like dead gacha games. Popular content creators can try out games that are pretty low-key or whatnot and bring their audience to try out this game. Let's say Captain Cabinet's trying out PGR, Tectone trying out Limbus Company, 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗵𝗁 trying out Tribe 9, Mr. Pokey covering the long-dead Honkai Star Rail. These gacha games may shut down, but as long as people are still talking about them, they're never truly gone. But let's be real, individual gacha games die all the time. Most don't even make it to their 5-year anniversary before they shut down, with one last pity banner and a goodbye message from the devs. Some even get axed in less than 2 years. But the gacha model, untouchable. The demand is there. The money is insane. The psychological tricks are too deeply ingrained. These companies have mastered the art of keeping players hooked, engaged, and most importantly, spending. Even when one game shuts down, another immediately rises to take its place. The cycle repeats and the genre isn't dying, it's evolving. And as long as people keep falling for FOMO, keep chasing meta units, and keep justifying that one last poll, gacha games will be around for decades. Personally, I will be there forever. I love gacha games. So after breaking this all down, the verdict is clear. Gacha games are thriving. The industry is printing money. New games are launching every year. The entire model is designed to survive, adapt, and outlast. From a business standpoint, it looks completely unstoppable. But here's the thing. Nothing is ever truly invincible. History proves that whenever something seems too big to fail, there is always something lurking beneath the surface. Whether it's regulations, market shifts, or player fatigue, or even internal greed pushing things too far. No empire lasts forever, and when a giant falls, it is never by accident. So next time, let's flip the script. How do you actually kill a gacha game? Stay tuned.